Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Feel Worthy podcast. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking to Dr. Andrea Higgins, a doctor of physical therapy with a holistic focus on pelvic health. She is on a mission to change the way women think about their bodies, and in this episode brings clarity and passion to a topic that's often overlooked or just never discussed at all. Throughout the episode, we learn how the pelvic floor is deeply connected to every part of our health and well being. We debunk common myths around Kegels, unpack the connection between stress and pelvic health, and explore simple practices you can start right away. Andrea also shares why self worth is such a vital part of healing and how women can give themselves permission to feel whole again. If you're an event professional navigating stress, postpartum, or simply looking for new ways to prioritize your health, this conversation is for you. Also, special thanks to the Grand Bohemian Lodge, Asheville, and Autograph Collection Marriott Hotel. I needed a place to record while I was in Asheville for my birthday weekend, and they allowed me to use their boardroom. It was an excellent space that can accommodate comfortably 10 people and had a window to their courtyard. Don't we all love natural lighting in our meeting spaces? I greatly appreciated their hospitality, and the town of Asheville is alive and well. So if you're hesitant because of the 2024 hurricanes, please don't be. Visit Asheville. It is the cutest town and stunning in the fall. So without further ado, let's get into the episode because I think this is a really important topic. Hi, Andrea. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kayla. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm super excited about this conversation and welcome to the Feel Worthy podcast. This conversation has been on my heart and my mind for well over a couple years now. I know ever since before we met, it's really changed my life. So I'm excited and hoping that all these event professionals get a lot out of this conversation. And like we were just chatting about before, at bare minimum, just know what is pelvic floor therapy, if not beyond that. So I think it'll be a wealth of information for them.
Yeah, let's go. I'm excited.
Yes. All right. So I like to start every episode with this idea and question of, so in the season of life and career, what does feeling worthy mean to you?
It's a great question. So it's definitely shifted, but I would say right now, feeling worthy to me means giving myself permission to take up space for my body and my work. And then as my new season of life as a mom, I think also too, like trusting that my presence, my voice, all my imperfections are enough. And that's where it's at right now with feeling worthy.
And I already see you as such a confident and amazing person. So I'm like, oh, she has it all together. And she is just killing it out there with your business and being a mom and traveling so much, which I'm sure when everyone follows you, they'll see your adventures. So I think that's really meaningful for the audience to hear because, it changes, especially as we go through these different seasons of life. But with that, let's start from the beginning. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so I am Dr. Andrea. So I have my doctorate in physical therapy, and I have chosen to specialize in the pelvic health region. That definitely was a journey in itself. We're not taught pelvic health in PT school. Hopefully, it's shifting a little bit. It should. It's on our boards, so we have to know what it is. But I was clueless, just like the average person, average woman is. I was answering the basic questions like Kegel for everyone and stuff that we'll break through later. And I'm a mom of a 16-month-old wild feral boy that I love. I love being a boy mom. My husband Cody is my business partner, so he's sports ortho PT. Like he mentioned, we love to travel, especially any mountain hiking. We love to be out and away from any civilization as much as we can, since we're in a busy city all the time. Our practice is in Florida. We love it here right now, but I think long term we see ourselves in the mountains. So it's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to chat more about the pelvic floor and how it is life changing.
Yeah, no, I'm excited and really great. How is it having your husband as your business partner? I know that was must be exciting and really awesome that it's close to home and you guys know each other in and out, is what I imagine.
I was nervous because you hear horror stories of people joining together with their partner, and I was like, we have such a great thing going. I would hate for that to, quote, ruin our marriage, but it's been amazing. We don't see each other that much. Like we did this to be able to take care of Kennedy, our son, So if I'm seeing clients, he's with Kennedy and vice versa. And so it's just so great for them to pop in when I'm with clients or between clients, and then getting to travel when we want to has been the best thing that we could have asked for. So it's been honestly great. He's so easygoing. I'm very like in your face, matter of fact, so it works very well.
Sounds like my husband and I, so I completely understand.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a fantastic transition. Honestly, wish we would have done it sooner.
Yeah, it sounds like the dream, honestly. Um, so I know I found you through shout out to Titanium Fitness when I was living in Florida and just trying to understand what on earth was going on with my body. And I think it's a sensitive topic for most women, and or if not all, just trying to understand postpartum, like how our body has changed. And I feel like not all doctors I've spoken to just operate the same way, or they do in the sense of it's just normal. Keep going. So when I found you and I discovered and I dipped my toe into like maybe I need some pelvic floor therapy or I'm just curious about what the topic is. Oh my gosh, it like changed my world upside down because I had no idea about it before. And maybe I'm not alone, or maybe I'm the only person out there that has felt this. But with your journey to become again really focused on the specialty of pelvic floor health, like can you tell us more about like what drew you to this work and why it was important for you to go down this path?
I like to say it kind of chose me. I had no interest at all. Like when I came out of school, I was like, sports, sports, sports. I want to be with athletes. I was an athlete my entire life. So I wanted to find a career where I could still have that passion, but still not play a sport. And so it came out sports ortho. So I'm treating neck pain, ACL repairs, Achilles issues, stuff that you see with athletes. And then my boss at the time was really nagging me to get certified in pelvic health because it was becoming a little bit of a hot topic at that time. I had no interest. So in my brain, because we don't get pelvic health in school, I was like, I'm gonna be with old women the rest of my career that are in diapers. Like, no, thank you. So that did not entice me. And then I shifted my brain. I was like, you know what? I need continuing education hours. Whatever, I'll do it. So I went to the course in Cleveland. And so that first continuing ed, we do all like you learn the anatomy, of course, and diagnosis, how to treat it. If something is dysfunctional, how do you treat that? And so there's a lot of like internal work that weekends. We're learning the pelvic floor from an external standpoint, so around the glutes, around the pelvis, and then internal via the vaginal wall or the rectum. And when we started having that and learning normal, not normal, my mom was blown. I had pelvic floor issues. Had no idea in my early 20s. And so all the light bulbs are like, oh, this is why I used to have this when I was running cross country. This is why my hamstring never fully healed in basketball. No one ever addressed my deep core. No one ever addressed my pelvic floor. And then I'm thinking about all my athletes that I'm treating now with chronic growing injuries, chronic hamstring knee issues, abdominal repairs that I never looked at. So I was like, wait a minute, this is what we're missing. This is why a lot of my clients or chronic pain patients aren't getting fully resolved. I'm missing a huge part of our nervous system, for one, and not addressing that. So once I took that course, I came back, started treating immediately pelvic floor, and have never looked back. And then since then, I shifted it to where I wanted to also keep my ortho background with the pelvic floor. So that's where I term kind of holistic pelvic floor therapy, where most pelvic floor therapies just treat the pelvis. They're just going to do internal exam, internal releases, where to me, that's not a complete picture. I want to look at the TMJ, I want to look at the toes and everything in between. So that's where I told myself that day that I was not going to be like every other pelvic floor therapist. I'm going to combine both of what I'm really good at and then create this holistic pelvic floor therapy.
Yeah, that was one of the most shocking things I learned because when I went into the first appointment, and this is me, so I guess HIPAA's out of the picture here, but I really I was floored. I was surprised about how like literally from like the foot up, like you were very detailed, and it was very much like, oh no, like the fact that well, I don't know what my feet were doing, but they were like rolling on my ankles. I did.
Or pronated, or usually, yep, most common, yeah.
Thank you. That. And I was just like, oh, I really thought it was going to be just like an internal exam and like we're done. And I was just really astounded how all parts of the body really connect and each part is just making an impact in another area. So, is this a common approach in your work in your field, or is it something that it's growing more attention? Like, can you walk me through a little bit more about that?
So our courses are very pelvic floor based, right? So a lot of pelvic floor therapists then come out and treat just the pelvic floor because that's what our continuing ed tells you to do. So if you come in with, let's say, bladder leakage, then you're going to get assessed at the pelvic floor. You're going to have an internal assessment done to the muscles, checking the bladder, checking the urethra, which is all great. I still do that.
Mhm.
And then if we say, like, let's find tension or tightness within that pelvic floor, a lot of pelvic floor therapists, again, what we're taught in class or continuing ed or even school is then to treat that with releasing. So releasing with our hands or breathing. To me, that just wasn't enough. I knew there was more to it than that. So how our body moves, our posture, stress. So what is our work life schedule like? So if we're on our feet a lot and we're wearing high heels all the time, being in that position with our heels lifted, that's got to impact our pelvic floor all day. And it does. So I knew ankle mobility impacts our pelvis, therefore impacts our pelvic floor. Same thing with our jaw. So if we're clenched, grinding here, I know if your tongue's not moving well, if you're a mouth breather versus a nose breather, that impacts the pelvic floor. So I knew I had to keep looking and seeing patterns within my clients that came in and just change the game. So I would say for the most part, it's still very, I don't want to say basic. It's still very much pelvic floor, just pelvic floor. That's it.
Mhm.
Now there are clinicians that started off in ortho like I did, and those are the ones that are changing the game and trying to connect the dots. Because there's no really good continuing education out there that does it. Because I have other PTs that always reach out and say, "What continuing ed did you take to treat the way you did?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I'm still searching." Like it's just more so perfecting my craft, learning from my husband, who's a fantastic ortho PT, and putting that together with my knowledge and anatomy of the pelvic floor.
Where is the book, Andrea? We need
I
Yeah,
know.
there's you like
I wish I would have done before having a baby.
there's still time. There's still time, and Kennedy will still be he's already impressed. I'm sure he'll be even more impressed when the book comes out. I'm manifesting that because I feel like this is just something widely that needs to be widely known and that isn't known. And I think women's bodies are just less focused on, and certain areas are starting to be more focused on, are more widely discussed, but we're still not there yet. So, you know, if more people could be helped by this topic where I felt like like my entire life was changed, that's all I want. So no pressure, just the whole public world science. But you mentioned stress, which is something I want to dive into because for event professionals, stress is one of the top things we deal with. We're in a high pressure environment. We're always on our feet and on the go. I think the shoe game has changed a little bit but historically it's always been in heels and walking and on our feet for 15, 20 hours a day as we're checking all of the rooms to make sure that they're all set or making sure that the stage is where it needs to be and attendees are fine. So it's just it's just a constant situation for us, and honestly, it still is. Maybe less of the heels, but still the constant moving around on our feet and being on and having that high stress environment. How does stress play a role in our pelvic floor?
So, stress directly impacts our breath, right? So, breath we do 24/7 without thinking about it. It happens to keep us alive. So, when we're stressed, our breath goes here. So, if I take, and I do this every eval. So, if I ask the client to take a deep breath, most times they're like, right? And so that's what's happening chronically when you're in stress is this, it's not as big, but we're just like this, breathing throughout the day. And so then our diaphragm that sits right below my bra line is always stuck up. So that's our respiratory muscle that we should be using. So with stress, it never moves. All these accessory respiratory muscles move. You still breathe, right? You're still alive. But when that diaphragm muscle is not moving, our pelvic floor is the same thing. It gets stuck. So it literally gets no release. It's just in a chronic state of tension. So just like where you can tell when you're grinding or clenching, the same thing is happening every time we breathe or hold tension. So how many friends or girls, men, do you know that are like, oh, I have so much neck tension? Everyone that comes in, I hold my tension here. So I guarantee if you're holding tension here, your pelvic floor is also holding on for dear life. It's like a headache down in the pelvic floor region. It's harder to realize that until you have the symptoms, that people just don't know what's normal versus not normal down there. But that's how stress is going to directly impact the pelvic floor via our breath and nervous system. And then if you're on your feet standing all day, don't even get me down a rabbit hole of shoe wear, but let's just say standing, right? That's going to put pressure through our pelvic floor depending on where you're bracing or putting pressure through your feet. So most people are going to just rock back to their heels, because usually shoe wear, especially heels, you're triangle like, so you don't have that ability to rock forward. That's going to impact your pelvic floor. And then if we're moving, we're bracing, we're lifting, if you're a vendor or whatever it is, and if you're holding your breath all day long, eventually you're going to have burnout, you're going to have pain, dysfunction, leakage, pressure, constipation with traveling too, right? So all that plays a huge role just time after time to the pelvic floor.
Again, the world is every time because I mean, did a massage yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I feel like," she's like, "Any area to focus on?" And I'm like, "Oh, my shoulders a little bit."
Always.
And always, it's usually my go-to answer when especially if it's been a while. But you mentioned the symptoms that you won't know about until later. What are the symptoms that people can look out for?
So let's start with bladder health. So the normal times to go to the bathroom are every 2 to 4 hours. And so if you're going under that, then you're more of a frequent peer. So let's say you're going every 30 minutes, every hour, that can be an overactive bladder. That's a sign that pelvic floor is probably not communicating with your bladder. On the flip side of that, if you're going every 5 hours, every 6 hours, and your bladder has a big stretch, that's not good either. So both of those, we want to seek attention for the pelvic floor. I would also say like any pain with urination is never a good sign. Frequency, burning, so all those UTI-like symptoms can actually be helpful. So if you have chronic UTIs and you're always like, why do they keep coming? I'm doing all the right things, especially if it's related to intimacy, that's usually pelvic floor and not UTIs. So that always blows people's minds with that.
Yeah.
So that's one. Bowel-wise, hemorrhoids. People always forget, I won't say forget, but just don't know that hemorrhoids are a pelvic floor issue because their GI doctors, their gastroenterologists aren't telling them there's like, here is prep 8, go do a sitz bath, or let's do a surgery. When hemorrhoids are just simply a pressure mismanagement issue. Also with bowels, so constipation, especially if it hasn't changed with you changing your diet. Gas leakage. So a lot of my older clients like, oh, that, or even like postpartum, let's say they had a 3rd or 4th degree tear, cranial tear with the vaginal delivery. That's a very common one that is pelvic floor related. And then the last one that I see with the bowels is the fecal smearing. So that can mean two things. So you go to the bathroom, you constantly have to wipe. You feel like you never get clean. That's a pelvic floor issue. And then if you feel like you wipe well, but then you go and see a stain on your underwear, not like you lost your bowels or your fecal matter, but just like a little stain, that's pelvic floor. And then we have lastly our sexual health. So that is where we have pain with sex, or different positions hurt or don't feel good, they're not pleasurable. So that inability to reach an orgasm is pelvic floor related, or pain reaching that. So a lot of my clients, like, they can reach it, but it's painful in that build up to reach. That's 100% pelvic floor. Period health, so tampons, pain with inserting or removing, and then pelvic exams. So if you have pain with like that speculum exam, of course, it's not comfortable, but it shouldn't be like you're like clenched for dear life and having referrals of pain. So those are like the most common directly related pelvic floor. And then you have other signs and symptoms outside of the body, like people probably wouldn't connect the dots with like, again, TMJ, clenching, grinding. Clenching, I can guarantee you have pelvic floor issues there. Different foot positions. So if you're more flat foot versus more of a high arch, that's going to impact the pelvic floor. Back pain is hugely related to the pelvic floor. So if you have back pain, I can guarantee you're going to have pelvic floor issues. And then some other sneaky ones, tailbone pain, because that attaches right to the pelvic floor. Hip pain and pubic pain. So those are all very correlated to the pelvic floor just because of the muscle attachment and where those muscles are.
I would be surprised if not every listener was like, huh, I've never even thought that was possible, or like pelvic floor was even something to think about as why any of the symptoms that you mentioned is happening to me, or I've been experiencing. Like, it just perhaps seemed normal, which I'm sure someone's like, okay, well, maybe now it's time I take a look at this or ask about this at least. Um, but it's funny because you said something earlier, and also all the symptoms that you mentioned seem like they can happen almost at any age. Um, what what is the right time and what age to start looking into this? Is it only postpartum, or is it only when you're in diapers and you're later in life?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Oh gosh, the right time now. Like when you're curious, when you want to optimize your whole body's health, because I'm telling you, when I started treating pelvic floor, it changed the whole game for the whole body connecting and having that bot or having that person connect better with their breath. I mean, that's the biggest thing that someone can change. I don't ever have neck or shoulder tension ever because I know how to breathe and I know how to do that all throughout the day, right? And so, and then of course, the right time is if you're already having symptoms, and that's most likely when people start to reach out, more of a reactive response instead of a proactive response. So ideally, we're proactive with it. So if you plan to have kids one day, ideally, I want to see preconception, right? So we're going to prepare for pregnancy, but oftentimes it just keeps getting pushed. You want to wait. So your girlfriend's like, oh, well, why do it during pregnancy? Just wait until you have symptoms postpartum. And that's what your OB will tell you too. Why are you doing this now during pregnancy? And then they wait postpartum and they're like, well, my kids, it's too much. I'll wait till they get a little bit older. And then the kids are older. And then there's always something else, right? So it's just like now is the right time. Ideally, proactive care is the best, but it's never too late.
That's good to know because the limited knowledge I had, and I mean, I was relying on my doctor. I could have done my research, but I was anyway, pre-pregnancy in the middle of a pandemic. I was just like, okay, you're telling me just to do Kegels. That seems like I guess that's all I have to do.
Yeah.
And later I found out that was not the whole. Not the only thing to do, or not the anyway, not the end all be all. Let's just say that. So I really want to get into some of these other myths too. So with Kegels, is that what it is? Is that all that it is? From what we've already talked about, it doesn't seem like even scratching the surface.
Yeah. So Kegels. So what are Kegels, right? So Kegels are just a contraction of the pelvic floor muscles. So you think about your bicep. When I contract my bicep, I just bend my elbow, right? So with the pelvic floor muscles, these. So when you contract here, so like holding in gas, holding in urine, if you're being intimate, like squeezing your partner's penis, that's all a Kegel, right? So if Kegels aren't bad. Like they can be very beneficial for someone that is underactive or weak down there, but it shouldn't be, like you said, the end all be all. And then on the flip side of things, so for your audience that are in the event industry, a lot of stress, physically demanding jobs, I guarantee most of those women have tension down there. So if you go and add that tension with stress, you're a poor breather, there's tightness in those pelvic floor muscles, so they're already clenched, and then you add Kegels to that, your dysfunction is going to get worse. So your leakage or back pain or gosh, even plantar fasciitis, your jaw issues is going to get worse with Kegels. So that's why I hate just like go do Kegels without having a proper eval. So when I look at the pelvic floor, I'm looking, can you contract? Can you lengthen? But most importantly, can you coordinate? So can you coordinate your breath, your abdominals with the pelvic floor? With pregnancy, so I teach people how to push appropriately for pregnancy, especially if they're trying to achieve a vaginal delivery. There is a certain term they need to know how to bulge appropriately with the breath to get baby through the canal. So that's a whole other coordination issue. Also, if someone's constipated, can you bulge with your breath? A lot of times with constipation, you might be like pushing or straining, but there's that anal muscle, external anal sphincter is actually squeezing. So then you can't get it through. And so that keeps you blocked up. So really the best approach is connecting the pelvic floor with movement and breathing.
Makes sense. And for those that are not watching on YouTube, because this will be on YouTube, you have to, because I think the the pelvis that you just lifted up, I think is genius for people to see, and also paints a better picture of what we're talking about. And so anyway, just quick side note for that. But it makes sense to me, and after I've learned this, it's been a game changer because I didn't realize I wasn't just simply breathing appropriately, or the fact that I was just standing and my posture was just off, or even the way in working out that doing a lunge, I was not doing perhaps effectively, not even just for the workout, but for my pelvic floor. So what's a misconception you wish and we just talked about Kegels, which I think is one of the bigger ones, but are there any other misconceptions you wish people would let go of, especially around postpartum or even, like, learning about pelvic floor health earlier? Um, and then the pressure to bounce back. So any thoughts there?
I would say with postpartum, we need to let go that healing is supposed to be fast and that you're supposed to be healed at 6 weeks. That's that magic marker time
Yep.
that your midwife or OB. You're just beginning, right? There's stuff that I wouldn't even give you the green light on as far as working out at 6 weeks. And then also too, let's get rid of getting your old body back, right? So like how can we shift from how fast can I look like I never had a baby and shift that to how can I support my body so I can thrive in this next chapter? That's like the big shift I would love to see. And especially now that I'm in that postpartum period myself for the first time, I've really had to shift my mindset around working out and pelvic floor health. My workouts don't look like what they used to, but they're functional and they're perfect for what I need to thrive with him as a toddler, chasing after him. So I don't have bladder leakage or pressure or heaviness or back pain chronically pushing him up because he's a mama's boy. So
With you.
yeah, so shifting that, especially in that postpartum, that bounce back culture of it's not about looking like we used to, but how can we thrive in this body in this new chapter?
I love that. I wish I heard and knew more of that because I felt like 6 weeks was the time, and then you're rushing to get back to feeling normal, like, with your body, with a new life, and then work, especially if you're in either a corporate position or you have, even as a solopreneur or freelancer that you wanna make sure you get back into work so that you're not losing out, whether on any of it, and it feels like 6 to 10, 12 weeks is like you have, like, the crunch time, like, you should be healed or even then, I looked at my friends that were, delivering at the same time as I did, and they were back to normal pretty quick, but it felt like I had a longer recovery time, and all bodies are different, but you look at all of these other things and societal pressures and feel like you have to just go faster. Also, just for women, sometimes it's like, "Why am I not going a superhuman speed because I should be?" How can you help your clients or how have you helped your clients reconnect with their bodies and listen to their needs without the guilt? Because I think that's the guilt is one of the biggest pieces of also wanting to get back sooner than later.
Yeah. So I think too, with just like, again, changing it. So saying, like, my body isn't failing me, it's asking for support. So, like, taking that self blame and more into like a self understanding thing is huge. I would also say instead of like silencing your symptoms, which we're told to do, like be quiet, don't advocate for yourself. This is all normal mom life, but realizing that that pain or your leakage or your pressure isn't something to hide, but something that deserves your attention and deserves to be spoken about. And then lastly, like instead of like just pushing through, keep pushing through because your mom, we go second. We put our kids first. We put everything else above ourselves. And seeing rest, seeing boundaries as an act of more of like self-respect instead of just weakness. Right. So I feel like that, I mean, I'm even talking from my lens too. Like I've had to shift all of this um, postpartum for myself. Again, I'm an old athlete, so I thought that I would. Again, I think I was good with the term of bouncing back, just being in this field. But I wasn't prepared to how my workouts were going to be completely different now. So I definitely went through a whole guilt of that. I'm like, oh, I'm not in the gym. I'm not lifting weights. I feel weak. I feel guilty for not being able to do that. Like I have friends that are doing it, but and again, reframing that, like, I'm still strong. I'm still able to support Kennedy much better than I probably would even pre, because I'm changing those workouts. I'm working on that part of supporting him in the way that I can now.
For me, the mindset shift didn't happen overnight. And I know you say like, we're still actively thinking through that. And I don't know, journaling helped, but sharing the story, sharing this information helped. So that's why I really wanted to bring this conversation to the forefront because it was something out of just, like, trial and error. I I discovered you, and I had I had no idea if it would even work, or if it was even the right thing to do. I was like, "Well, it's the best next step I have." Uh, and thankfully, it was great, but really, it was a shot in the dark, and also, I think I just saw your card in the in the gym, and I missed out on the seminar and workshop that was done, in the gym at the time. I think I was traveling for work, so I was so bummed about that. But how can people start informing themselves about this topic, if they have no idea where to start? I know this conversation's helpful, but any other thoughts, resources?
A lot of people find stuff out on social media these days. That's how a lot of people find me. Old Dr. Google. It's really sad because I still, a lot of people are like, I'm sure you get a lot of referrals from OBs, midwives, GIs, gastro doctors. And it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. Like, they're not sending their patients out. They're not educating. If they are, it's just like how you would say, just to do Kegels. Or, I mean, I still get pushed back a ton from my pregnant clients that their OBs are like, why are you going in now? Like, what you're experiencing is fine. You're pregnant. What do you expect? And so it's still really tough out there. So I feel like the biggest thing is being your own advocate, unfortunately, now. You still, like, when you notice something is off, listen to that. That's your sign of your body is hugely disconnected. It's not your fault. No one has educated us on how to move appropriately, where what should have started in childhood, with sex health and sex education in school. But the biggest thing is being your own advocate. It'll easily pop up on social media, because a lot of social media, and then also Google, because if you go and you Google it, usually pelvic floor therapy will come up, thankfully. But unfortunately, at least around my area, the doctors are not doing a great job of referring out on that more holistic proactive care. It's more surgery or just wait sort of side of things.
Okay, well, if anything, we're doing our job, I think, by sharing this information and putting it out there for those that didn't know. I'm hopeful that the more awareness there is about it, the more people can start to shift the conversation and even think of it as a first step instead of an afterthought. But I also know you put a lot of great information on your social media, which is always engaging and teaching, which is what I think half the people are looking for. So we've talked a lot about healing and just even knowing the symptoms that are there. How are healing and self-worth like interconnected?
Let's say, in my experience, healing is never just about the muscles or tissues. I used to think about, like, what's the perfect exercise for this person, right? What is, or how is this going to help them the quickest? How can I get them out of pain? How can I get that prolapse lifted so they don't have symptoms ASAP? But it's not about that. And that's where I feel like healing and self-worth is hugely connected. It's going to be more about restoring the trust in yourself and your body, right? And I feel like when women reconnect with that, that's when they start to show up differently. When we can get out of that mindset of, give me the best 3 exercises. That's not what it's about. I more so want you to show up and know how, again, to breathe, trust your body that it can change, it can adapt, it can grow. I feel like that's where the healing and self-worth are hugely connected. And kind of going back to what I was saying earlier of, like, shifting self-blame to more self-understanding, not silencing your symptoms but speaking up. And then instead of pushing through, honoring those limits of, it's not weakness. Setting those boundaries is more of that act of self-respect for your body.
Yeah. No, I think it's something that we're still learning and overcoming. And going back to even the idea that 6 weeks is just a starting point, what is kind of that journey, or how long could it really take to get your body back to, I don't want to say normal, because what is normal these days, but feeling healthy and feeling healed and operating at like optimal capacity? What does that time frame look like? And
It could be years, like, there's so many variables with it. From a tissue standpoint, the 6 weeks tissues are not anywhere near ready. So you have to think of, was it a cesarean delivery? Was there complications with that C-section? Was there multiple C-sections? If it was a vaginal delivery, was there tearing? Was there complications with that tearing? And then on top of recovery from just a physical muscular standpoint, what I address, then we gotta think about the mental. Because if the mental capacity isn't there, there's no way the physical capacity is gonna be there. So how is mom being supported? Is she being supported at home with partners, with her village, with food, right? Is she being fed? Is she breastfeeding? If she's breastfeeding, how is that impacting everything, and from, again, physical standpoint, but also mental aspect? Is it painful? How is she comparing if she's formula fed? Like, how is that all impacting the mental load? So there's so many capacities or so many other things that is going to impact healing. And then you have like previous injuries that also from a muscular standpoint. So if you came into pregnancy with a history of back pain or core weakness that probably go hand in hand, then that could take a little bit longer from like a diastasis recti healing standpoint. So a lot of times we're like, well, why didn't my friend Sally heal in 6 weeks? And why am I taking 6+ months to heal? A lot of times pregnancy exacerbates those issues that you already had. And so that's going to take a little bit longer postpartum to heal. And again, the proactive care does much better. So when I see people preconceptive during pregnancy, those women do so well from a physical standpoint postpartum versus the ones I'm just seeing now for the first time postpartum.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes absolute sense. So you at least prepare in the pelvic health region as you're preparing also for getting the nursery ready and also just preparing for what life looks like. So it overall usually has a better outcome if you just prepare in any capacity, right? And I think as event pros, we're always preparing for all the contingencies, but I honestly was not preparing for this part because I had no idea. So it was harder for me. And I think it's important for what you said earlier is that it could take years and the mental and the physical are combined, or the mental, if that is so far in one direction, it's going to take that much longer to heal. Because I mean, my feeling of like internal feeling of feeling broken or feeling like I was never going to get fixed, I was like, I don't know how you begin to overcome this because I think this is just I'm stuck like this. I am.
Yeah.
I'm broken and this is just how I felt. But knowing I think what actually was wrong started to make me feel more empowered and less of that guilt and that shame and more of like, okay, this is something we can actually fix and deal with versus something that was just going to be like irreparable.
Right.
So
I love that. I think so too. You mentioned a good point with that. So when I have clients come in, especially with pelvic organ prolapse, that can be very scary. Whether it's self-diagnosed based on their symptoms that they Googled or they've had an OB tell them. Or again, they don't know, right? They just go based off of like symptoms and they come in and like they just finally feel heard, validated, and someone has finally told them what stage it is. And then if I did stage it, they're like, it's always at the end, can you fix me? Am I your worst case? It's always like that after every eval. I'm like, if we went through this and I saw stuff, then that means we can address it. Everything that I'm looking at is addressable. So 100%, but you brought a great point up. When they hear like, oh, it's just a stage 1 urethrosil that is changed with muscles, like you can just like feel that just like moment for them that again, that someone has finally looked at this from a holistic lens and not just a one-off internal exam lying on their back, because most symptoms aren't on someone's back. They're usually in standing at events on their feet all day. So kind of mimicking that is just a big sigh of relief. I get that after every eval of just like, thank you for hearing, thank you for sharing this space with me, and just validating my symptoms and listening.
yeah, which is I think anyone just wants, especially if you're going through something, you just want someone to listen and feel and you to feel heard. And I mean, I don't know the number of times I've been to the doctor where I'm like, I know something is wrong and you are not addressing this. And not to say doctors are bad. That is not the stance I'm on at all. It's just in the more of the pelvic floor postpartum stages. I was like, something is feels off, and I just don't know exactly how to put my finger on it. And then it's been dismissed. So I love the doctors that have been amazing because I've even had friends that I'm like, oh, I finally had a doctor listen to me, or I finally had someone else listen to me. And I think that if we can't breathe, feeling I think it's hard to breathe when you feel know something's wrong, but you're not being listened to. So the breath of fresh air when they either meet you or meet someone else that's listened to them is real. So if breath is where this all starts with, I think it's hard for those that just don't even know where to even begin to know that like it's as simple as a breath or that they can even breathe if they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah,
I
and
think
with the simple breath, some other practical tools, because with you guys in that event industry, like it's so bam, bam, bam. Like I don't expect any of my clients, but especially someone with a high demanding, physically demanding job, I don't expect you to give me an hour of PT, right? So how can we make it practical for you in this stage of life with work, if you're a mother? Um, so breathing, obviously we do that 24/7. So I want to start implementing and you practicing that daily. Then what else do we do daily? Pee, hopefully poop, but peeing and pooping smarter. So we don't hover, especially if you're on the go. A lot of people will like, I don't hover at home, but if you're traveling a lot, we need to also break that when you're not at home. So we don't want to hover on the toilet. Also, too, with peeing and pooping smarter, you want to have the feet always flat. So a lot of people hover their heels up, toes are down, especially if we're shorter, or in the US, our toilets are a lot higher than they should be. And so then that puts us already at a bad posture for our pelvic floor for peeing and pooping daily. So some, again, practical tips. It's not going to take any extra time. You're already on the toilet. Do it better. So we're not power peeing. We're not pushing to pee. It sounds funny, but a lot of people do that because they just want to get out of the bathroom as soon as possible, especially if you have a little one right there. And then same thing for bowels. So a lot of people are like, oh, I know that, but they still do that. They're still breath holding. So an easy tip when you're on the toilet for bowels, make like a snake noise because there has to go pressure down to allow your bowel movements to come down and through the rectum and then of course the anus. So to offset that pressure as that's happening, a simple snake noise can be really helpful for that. So peeing, pooping smarter, breathing, and then realizing that strength's probably looking a little bit different, especially when you're traveling. So how can we strengthen? So if you're lifting, you're bracing throughout the day, maybe you're moving stuff. The biggest thing is bracing your core appropriately. So make sure you're breathing out as you go to lift. A lot of people hold their breath. So those are like the practical tips that, again, that's not taking any extra time from what you're doing. How can we already do it? Changing your posture too. So if you're in standing, what are better positions for you? If you're in, you're sitting on an airplane, what are better postures for when you're traveling? If you're sitting long periods. And then another like practical tool that I like for my clients, like you guys that are busy on their feet, travel a lot, is just taking like a tennis ball or lacrosse ball with you so you can do your own self myofascial releases. And so it doesn't, I think that's a lot of times where people also, especially postpartum, are hesitant with scheduling physical therapy because they feel like it's going to take a lot of time
Absolutely.
to get better, or they're going to have to dedicate, oh, I don't have any other time. Like this is already enough for me showing up. Absolutely, that is. So then let's do what we call it movement snacks throughout the day, or a little self myofascial release stuff, improving the way you breathe. If you're nursing, like that's a great opportunity to work on your posture and your breath. So you get two things done with what you're already doing.
I love the practical tips because I think for your pros, we're always looking for one, we're always busy. I think that busy is the biggest, like we can wear it on a forehead. But then also with traveling and then the recovery time, even like post event, we're like, okay, well, I shouldn't feel exhausted because although I've been on my feet for 20 hours and with people for over a week straight, I should just be able to take a nap and then keep going. And that's also not reality. But then when do I fit in an exercise, an appointment? And if it could feel like it could take hours long and I don't have hours. When do I fit this in? So I think the practical tips you shared are genius. And I wanted to touch on the footwear, which I know you said you can go down a rabbit hole, but I think it's important because we're always looking for better footwear on site because we're on our feet a lot. And I mean, heels have been historically what people wear. People are starting to wear sneakers, but I know even with certain sneakers, they might not even be the right options for us to be on our feet for so many hours and standing and walking and lifting. So any thoughts there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, if we are in shoes outside of heels, because heels have not made a transition into like the wide toe box barefoot shoe world because it's just impossible because it's a heel. So you can't be barefoot with it. But other stuff, there are all kind of alternatives nowadays. So what we want to look for in a shoe is a wide toe box. So that's where the front part of our toes go in. So most shoes are made like a triangle at the top.
Okay.
And so it's triangular at the top and then kind of wide and then it kind of circles around. So again, you want your shoe to be looks like a foot and not looks like you're shoving your foot into like this triangular motion. So that's step number one, wide toe box. That's what you want to look for in a shoe, not a wide shoe. Because a lot of companies are getting sneaky. So they know wide toe box shoes, barefoot shoes are becoming very popular. So then they're marketing Brooks and Saucony's, all these popular shoes as wide. So then clients will come in, oh, I got a wide shoe. I'm like, it's only wide here, not at your toe box. The toe box still sucks. So it's just the toes. We want all those 5 toes to be able to spread. Your toes should be able to spread within your shoe. I would say most shoes on the market won't allow you to do that. So now your feet are like this. And so then you have bunions forming, right? And then you have our plantar fasciitis, you have calluses, the list goes on. And that's going to dictate literally everything up the chain with your shoe wear because of what your foot is doing or what it's not doing. So a good transition, I would say, for people on their feet and they're used to wearing like cushion or an insole in their shoe, because the insoles have just over time weakened your arch, because your arch is not doing anything now. It's just resting on a cloud. And so it's weakened. So a good transition shoe that I love is an Altra, A-L-T-R-A, or a Topo, T-O-P-O. So if you're in the sneaker world, those are 2 good transition shoes. They're all wide toe box, but they have a little cushion still. So it's not going from like a huge cushion shoe to then completely barefoot. Because that's also not good either. We want to have good transitions, because your foot would be like, what are you doing to me? I've never had to work in this capacity. And we don't want that. Now, and then too, for like nicer shoes, again, outside of heels, that's come a long ways as well. There's really few shoes. Me and my husband went to a barefoot shoe conference in Denver earlier in the year, and they had everything from Converse type shoes to women's dress shoes, men's dress shoes, rain boots, cowboy boots, like you name it, it's out there. Cleats is another big one for our kids or adult athletes that are changing. The big thing though is, again, you want to look for wide toe box.
Good to know, because I was going to mention, like, I've seen, like, when you shop if you go on DSW or if you go on a shoe website, they do show, like, the W for Y. So I was like, is that enough? But clearly not.
Well, not barefoot like you're barefoot, but they're barefoot shoes. So like, or so they're shoes, but they're not going to have like a big insole in it. So it just mimics you being barefoot within a shoe.
Gotcha.
So all of my shoes are like that, but you wouldn't know it. Like they don't look like, toe shoe, like, like I'm not out barefoot. I mean, a barefoot.
Just learning new things today. No, I've seen some of, and I saw that you went to the conference, which looked really awesome. It's great that, in these events world, like that there are events that now are for these different types of audiences. Like we've seen so many like corporate and so many of the big brands, but I mean, there's a space for it all, which I think is really exciting and important, because this is something I had no idea about. But when I saw that you went to the conference, I was like, there is something out there that's really showcasing the importance of this.
It's low hanging fruit. Like I said, I could go on and on with the feet. Like I get all my clients to change and shift, because if we keep addressing foot health and pelvic floor health, and you keep coming in these narrow toe box shoes, we're only going to get so far.
Yeah.
And so when I have clients shift, they're like, holy cow, I can't go back. And you can't go back. Like once you go to a wide toe box shoe and know how you can actually feel your foot and you have foot freedom, there's no way you're going to go back to those narrow toe shoes.
I'm going shopping right after this. I do have some events coming up, so I want to make sure I'm actually now supporting that. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I know our time is coming to a close and you're a busy mama. So what is the best event you've ever attended, and what made it unforgettable?
Can it be a wedding?
It could be whatever you want, whatever kind of wedding.
So my husband's best friend got married in Colombia, South America last year. His wife lives in Colombia, or is from Colombia, I should say. And so they wanted to have the wedding there. So I'd never been to a Colombian wedding, and blew every other wedding out of the water, just from like the food was top notch for one, their culture, and they had like different acts, I guess you could say, for each like event. So like, they had a different act, whether it was different music or performers or costumes for cocktail hour, and then when like guests were being seated versus when the wedding party was being announced, you had these beautiful white costumes of men and women with different instruments announcing everyone. That I've never seen that. Then we're eating the best dinner. You have these violinists playing different covers of music. And then it changed to more of like an upbeat, now let's get everyone on the dance floor. So it was more like a club DJ vibe at that point.
Yeah.
And then it kept going. It kept changing. Then you had the end of the night, like, I mean, it went until 3, 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So then you have like these huge, like almost like people on stilts. I mean, it was nutty. It was I mean, all of us were like, that's the wildest, best wedding we have ever attended. So that one definitely, I will never, ever, I don't think any wedding will ever top that Colombian wedding that we went to and had an awesome part in being a part of, because Cody was in the wedding. My husband was in the wedding.
That's awesome. That sounds amazing. I mean, it definitely keeps you on your toes. So, like, unlike, I feel like every wedding, not every wedding, but most weddings are pretty standardized. So it seems like it just took it to another level. I love that. I love that.
I was just like, what's next? I just never knew what was coming after that.
That's awesome. All right. When you are not guiding women through public healing, what are some of your favorite hobbies to unwind and and take care of yourself, self-care, relax?
Well, just being an athlete. I mean, the easy one's working out. Like that's definitely my mental break. That's changed a lot postpartum. I definitely don't work out nearly as much, but I would say hobbies wise, I'm in a book club with some girlfriends every month. So I really enjoy that. We change it up every month with what kind of books we're reading. So that's been really fun to do that separately. Also hiking. I've mentioned that a few times, but that's definitely a huge, huge hobby of mine and my husband's, and hopefully showing our son that and sharing that with him too. Also with trips, like I really love helping like our family and friends plan different trips. So that's just for fun, because I feel like I always do a great job of itinerary and planning where it's not overwhelming, but you get to see everything. That's not expensive. Like hiking's free, but I see the most beautiful places in the world by doing that. And then to farmers markets, that's definitely a top thing that we like to do on the weekends, especially if we travel too. I want to go see what's local and just supporting local businesses, because me and my husband have a local small business, and I like to kind of give back to the community and support that in those ways too. So I would probably say those are my top favorite things. Sports is a big thing in our family. So football's on right now. It's everything right now in our life.
I'm with you. I know. The moment football season has hit, it's just been the brains have changed.
Yeah.
So we are fully invested. So, but no, I love that. I love asking the question because I think doing things outside of our work is important, and just to break away from that and really have a change of pace and scenery. So it helps with everything. Also, people can learn new hobbies from that. So if we share our own experiences. All right, what is one question you want to ask event professionals? It could be about anything. And the goal is that they'll answer. So I like to get the audience involved and they'll share their responses from their experience.
Yeah. Okay, so what's like one small detail or choice in your events that most people would never notice but makes the biggest impact?
Ooh, okay. It's a really good question. And I can think of a lot of things. But I am gonna let the audience answer that one. So I'm sure they're gonna come up with some different things, especially if it's a corporate versus weddings. There might be some of the same, some of the different. Where can listeners learn more about your work and connect with you if they have any questions?
It's the world that we're in, social media. Like that's where I'm most active. It's at Andrea Andrea Yarbrough YRBROUGH _PF doc, like DOC. I chat with everyone, I open conversation to my private messages all the time. I always look for my requests folder, so I'm very active in trying to answer appropriate questions on social media. That's probably where I'm the most active with new people that I don't know. And then as far as finding where we're in Tampa Bay, Florida, a little small beach town in Dunedin. And I also treat virtually all over the world. And so that's a big bulk of my clientele as well. I have clients in Switzerland and Canada and England and of course in America, but virtually is another big thing. So I think a lot of people are like, oh man, I really wish I could find a provider like that. So you can do it virtually.
Amazing within the age we live in that's available and that it's possible, because I would think it would have to always be in person, but the fact that you can find a way to do it virtually is very impressive and amazing, and I'm sure audience will take advantage of that completely. But we'll definitely link your social media in the description. And before we sign off, what is one thing to the woman listening right now, whether she's young, whether she's older and wise, and in this event space that's been too busy or unsure and like embarrassed or just feeling how it feels about getting help and diving into this topic more, what would you say to her?
I would say you deserve to feel like yourself again, and you don't have to wait until life slows down to do it. And so, like, we always have that excuse as women of putting everyone first and waiting until there's an ideal time. There's never an ideal time, right? So don't wait. You deserve this for yourself and to your body. And that's what I would say. And I do say to my clients, I always say that I'm proud of you for showing up. That's always the step number one.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. But thankfully, I saved this years to the end. Thank you so much for the conversation today, Andrea. I'm so excited and I can't wait for this to air. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm excited for everyone to listen. Hopefully, they learn something.
I'm sure they will. All right. Bye.
Bye.